Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the final edition of Kolpack and Izzo Podcast for 2022. North Dakota State set to play in the FCS Championship game against South Dakota State. Set for Sunday, January the 8th on ABC or WDAY, 1 o'clock. Bison game day will get you started right before at noon. Part of our huge contingency of foreign communications that, of course, will be heading down to cover the national championship round 10 for you and me. I can vividly remember that first time. That first one, going down and just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, thinking, I got to get all this video. And then remembering I used like 20% of it that actually made it on the news for that first time. But
now you're just a chiseled Grizzly veteran. Yeah, know when to shoot and when not to.
I still run around, though, with a chicken with my head cut off.
Oh, I know Frisco better than I know Southwest Fargo. I know that.
I was going to say, I know it's certainly better than, like, veterans and out in West Fargo. Like, that, I can get you around Frisco, no problem. But we are counting down now, closing in on game day. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Anticipation here is we're about, 9 days out from the game now. Give me your vibe from people you visited with over the holidays. Is there a juice to this that you have not noticed for other title games?
I'm not sure about that. That's a good question. Maybe it's just too far out yet. I think next week it'll probably ramping up a little more. But my vibe from talking to people is the Bison are in trouble in this game and keeping the undefeated streak alive down there. It's South Dakota State's a favorite.
Yep.
I don't think there's any question about that. They're healthier. There's no question about that. Yep. And they have the better quarterback right now. No doubt about that. Probably the better defensive line. They lead the country in run defense. So all those factors that NDSU has always taken with them in their back pocket to Frisco has now tilted, I think, to South Dakota State.
So when you do your matchups for the game day special section, where do you have NDSU as the advantage right now?
Well, it's just, I haven't done it yet, but
just off the top of your head,
I'd give the Bison the advantage in the secondary.
Offensive line?
Special teams and offensive line.
Okay.
I think everything else
Special
goes
teams, secondary, offensive line to the Bison.
Okay. Is that fair?
I think so. Quarterback, I would give the edge to Gronowski. Running backs right now, the Bison are dinged up. We don't know the status of Kobe Johnson and TaMerik Williams right now. Isaiah Davis is healthy. I mean, that's their guy. Wide receivers, the Yankee twins, I'd give that over.
And you got to put Kraft in there, too.
And I would, absolutely. Yeah, I would give the nod there.
Defensive line, Winkleman.
They're
veterans.
The Jacks are loaded there. Linebacker, Bison are dinged up there. Wirtz has missed time.
Bach is
back for SDSU. The Bison secondary has definitely been lights out all season. So, yeah, special teams, SDSU, Hunter Dustman's been really good. He's done all three jobs this year.
I think Jaden Price is the difference there, though. I just think he's a breakaway threat that the Jacks don't have at that spot.
So, with that said, how do the Bison tilt? Can they tilt any of that in their favor? Is that day of the game they need to find out who's available and who can step up and play?
Well, matchups don't take into account big plays and turnovers.
Yep.
And that's how you do it, and that's how they're going to have to do it. They're going to have to find some sort of big play. You look at the explosive plays. It's not like the Jacks have this dynamic offense that they're going for 80 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, their long run this year is 51 yards, and that's by Gronowski. The longest run by Davis is 47. You look at NDSU and their running backs, Kobe, long run of 75, TaMerik, 68, Cam Miller, 68, TK Marshall, 65. All those are more explosive than South Dakota State. You look at their passing game, the longest reception by a receiver is Tucker Kraft at 57 yards, and Jaden Yankee's 51. You look at NDSU's receivers, long play of 76. Well, DJ Hart's not here anymore.
Yeah.
But after that, you go to Stuffle at 47. So not
that was
quite
against Samford a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, not quite as explosive on the receiving end as South Dakota State. But the Bison backs now, will they be there? I'm looking at your face.
It's a good question. TaMerik Williams, what I was told, two sources told me before the Incarnate Word game, if that game was on Saturday, Williams could have played.
So what do we make of Matt Entz saying, I'm not as happy with the situation, whatever his quote was?
They're progressed as far along as I thought.
And I've had so many people say, is he just
You think so?
Is he just playing games here? Is he just being coy?
I don't think so.
That's not his MO.
No,
I've just never known him to do that.
I don't find that to be his MO on that. I think that there are if it's Eli Mostaert, if it's Will Mostaert, if it's Loshaka Rokes, if it's Kobe Johnson, if it's Luke Wirtz.
I'm pretty sure Eli Mostaert's going to play.
I would think so.
We're pretty sure he's going to play.
When we were told on signing day,
right,
Eli was practicing. Eli was in the green jersey practicing. I would imagine 53 is going to play in the national championship game.
If Matt Entz is playing Coy, then that would be the first time.
Yeah, I agree. And that would be odd. It would just, like you said,
if all these guys show up
against type.
If Hunter Lipke shows up in
right. And
that's not going to happen.
Lipke's not playing. I saw one tweet about that, I think to McFeely. Like, Lipke had surgery. He's not going to play, which I'll get to that in a little bit. But that's the rub on it. So I would imagine Mostaert, Eli, and TaMerik Williams will play in this game. After that, Raja Nelson, Luke Wirtz, Will Mostaert, Kobe Johnson, that's all up in the air. I mean, we're going to have like the binoculars like we did in 2016 looking across the sidewalk for Carson Wentz. Like, hey, I think that's number 11. He's throwing. I think we're going to be in that situation again.
They're going to bring in BG to look out for us.
Brian Gordon May.
They're going to contract him for 3 days.
I mean, I don't know what that. To your point, I don't think that would be really odd that Entz would do that. I think there's something to it, Jeff, to answer your question.
It kind of is the MO this year, is it not? It's just been the theme of so many guys out. And what's that say for the rest of the FCS?
Oh, it's not good. It's not good for everybody else.
That a beat-up Bison team is in Frisco.
Yep.
A vulnerable Bison team is in Frisco.
That's the best word to describe it. Yep. A vulnerable team that should have been beaten is alive and well and has a chance for...
Well, not well, alive.
Well, they're alive, yeah. They made
not
it
well.
there. Yeah, they're alive. They're there for a 10th time to do this.
That taping sound before the game, that's to tape all these limbs, keep them on their bodies.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, if this game was another 2 weeks later, NDSU would love that. Keep it going as far as possible into January to get as many guys back. But at a certain point, you got to have to roll with what you got. I mean, if it's TaMerik Williams and Barika Penu as the 1-2 combo in the backfield, or Jalen Bussey,
Owen Johnson going to get a
right?
carry.
I mean, that's going to end up being. I mean, it could be TaMerik and TK Marshall as the guys. I mean, that may very well they're going to have to roll with that, and that's Cole Payton's another name out there. That Payton is, from what I'm told, is still not 100% either, and that's a huge part of this game as well. Is that the Bison run game, Jeff, the last 3 times that they've played the Jackrabbits has been completely neutralized. It has not been the Bison run game, and SDSU has sniffed that out to a T, especially in that game in October when they played at the Dome.
They do have 3 weeks to figure this out, though.
Yep.
They have 3 weeks to do some stuff. I don't know what you can do in 3 weeks, but I'm not a wrinkle-minded football mind. But it's enough time to do some stuff if you need to do some stuff.
Are you talking like trick stuff, or are you talking
totally different looks? Yep.
Because SDSU, remember, Stiglmeyer made his hay on that with the Bison in the first couple playoff games, especially 2014 when we saw the Zenner Wildcat that the Bison had never seen before, and SDSU almost won that game with Zenner getting the ball directly snapped to him.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a roll with Cole Payton the whole game. I don't know.
No.
What do you do?
Well, the biggest thing from the first game, Hunter Lipke played in the first game. He's not playing, and Tucker Kraft didn't play in the first game for the Jazz. I mean, that's another
one star in, one out.
Right, another decidedly advantage for South Dakota State that the Bison don't have, and Lipke was effective in that game against NDSU. I'll just go back. We talked about it on this podcast. We talked it to death. I don't know what happened defensively for South Dakota State and offensively for the Bison in the second half of that game. If the Cam Miller penalty was such a thing that they couldn't overcome, it seemed to Jeff. I went back and watched it earlier this week. It's just, I kind of scratched my head. The Bison offensively did nothing in the second half of that game against the Jacks.
I thought they got conservative, though. I thought they shut it down a little bit and got conservative, and you're not going to be able to do that this time around.
No. But here's the thing.
They came so close to putting that game away.
Right. I mean, Braylon Henderson catches that ball at the 5-yard line. And then Miller gets penalized, backs him up 15, and then 2 plays later, Cole Payton throws a pick in the end zone. And the game.
What a swing.
The game was I mean, the Bison go up 28-7. That game is over. Even if the Bison get a field goal at 24-7, right? Even if they can't punch it in.
It just has a different feel, doesn't it?
It's 24/7. And I distinctly remember telling Kyle Emanuel as we were on the air going to break, like, this is a massive break for the Jacks. This game could be decided right now, and SDSU's got some new life. And then clearly things changed in the second half. But everyone was on the Bison defense, Jeff. They kept the Jacks had 1 touchdown in the second half. They kept them to 2 field goals in the second half of that game. And the Bison defense, I think, is better now than it was in the middle of October.
I think you're right.
SDSU.
Yep, I think you're right on that. I think they're better.
Wisniewski didn't play in that game either.
Their run defense is better.
Yep.
Their interior guys have grown up a little bit, and they've been better. Javier Darrett's been noticeably better.
Yep.
He's going to have to be noticeably better this time around against the Jacks.
Here's your drive chart for the Bison in the second half of that game. Ready? 4 plays, 10 yards. 6 plays, 6 yards. 4 plays, 17 yards. 8 plays, 26 yards.
That's it. Well, the better defensive team won it, obviously.
And remember, Davis got hurt. Remember, Davis left that game, and Amar Johnson came in, and he shouldn't be shortchanged either of how talented a back he is.
He had a couple effective plays there in the second half.
That to me is a big deal there. I'm I'm tickled about this. This is going to be a fabulous game to see how it plays out. But with the Bison as dinged up as they are, I mean, are they an underdog, Kolpack? They are the underdog in the betting lines, but can they be considered an underdog when you've won 9 times down there?
How close will we be paying attention to warm-ups?
Oh, God, yeah. More so than Craig Bohl did in 2014 when the field was being torn up against Towson. I think we'll be as like last year when we were watching Christian Watson warm up, and he played in the title game last year. SDSU's experience in Frisco is nothing compared to what this one will be. That one is not a throwaway, but it's nothing. It's not real. You know what I mean? Like the lead up to it, all of it.
The 3 weeks is a big deal.
Yeah.
NDSU has figured that out. Obviously, 9-0 in Frisco.
Yeah.
1 week, just not a whole lot of time to do some stuff in there. 3 days of game prep essentially. Now you have a couple of weeks or more of game prep. Well, yeah, about a couple of weeks. Yeah, you could prep and then you put the install in.
How about for SDSU doing this, just to dovetail off of that, right? That their majority of this team went down there in May of 2021, but again, it was 5 days after they had beaten Delaware to get there. It wasn't a full house. This is a brand new experience. Everything that they will go through when they get there on Thursday is completely different than what they experienced 18 months ago.
So do you think it'll make a difference? I don't know if it'll make a difference so much because they have been there. I mean, you can't discount that.
They have been there.
They've seen the stadium.
But the experience
They've
is
played
different.
in the stadium.
Yes.
Yeah, the experience is different. But I think once the game starts, it starts, and you move on and you roll on. I don't think it'll affect the game at all.
Does the opponent matter? I think it does. It's this faceless, nameless opponent junk can take a hike to me. I mean, this is it.
Well, let me ask you this. Does the horns down sign that these Bison players have been seeing pretty regularly now, does that matter?
I don't
then why
think
would
so.
Then why would the fact that South Dakota State hasn't experienced, why would that matter? Once the game starts.
Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out. I think it does. I think the horns down thing has been done to death, personally. They started it, whatever it was, April of 21 when they won the marker there and kept the marker on the field for pictures for a half hour after, and one of the assistants shattered the glass up at the dome.
What's NDSU going to do? Like bunny ears down? What can they do?
I don't know. I'm interested. Really, the deal to me, this game is Cam Miller's game. If Cam Miller plays well, the Bison have an outstanding chance to win. If he does not, and he has not, and has acknowledged that in the 3 previous matchups, that the Bison will not win this football game.
He can't go 1 of 12 for 5 yards like the Incarnate game.
But he can't.
Incarnate Word game. You cannot do that. And he admitted it. He goes, I was off. It was like a pitcher who couldn't throw the strike zone.
Now, I'll say this. People look at his stat line. He was 17 of 22 for 227 and 2 touchdowns in the game in October. But it was the incompletes he had. First, it was the personal foul. There's no doubt. And then the incompletes he had at the end of that game where you've got to be money late in the game. Brock Jensen, Carson Wentz, Easton Stick, Trey Lance, that's where they made their hay, was in the fourth quarter. I don't know if we saw it from Cam and Incarnate Word. We need to see it here against South Dakota State in the championship.
But we saw it with his legs.
Right.
He had a couple guys open there that could have really done some damage and just flat out missed him.
Yep. There's no doubt about it. Gronowski seems like, to me, he's getting healthier, more confident, because he didn't run the ball a whole lot. You remember Jeff against NDSU. He's doing that a bit more as the season's gone. I'm just looking here at his run him up. Against the Bison, he ran it 9 times, right? Since then, 13 against Illinois State, 8 against Delaware, 10 against Holy Cross, 10 against Montana State. That is something that, and he killed the Bison. And that, I know the spring is what it was, but Gronowski was so effective with his legs against NDSU in the spring of 21.
Averaging 3.3 yards per carry. Isaiah Davis at 5.9, but then the NDSU guys are 7.6, 7.4. There's a difference there.
I'm interested. I think. Do you agree with me on Miller, or do you think it's another part of the game?
It's big. Oh, absolutely. Your quarterback's got to be good in this game.
And think of it: of the 9 times down there, the Bison have had the better quarterback players. Not even close. Brian Bell was not good for Sam Houston State in those games. Peter Aarons, the quarterback at Towson, no. Roberson was good. Trey Roberson was really good. Eli Jenkins was not good. Shore had his worst game.
Roberson also threw an interception to finish that game.
But Brian Shore had 3 picks in the game in 2017 against the Bison. Barrier had turned the ball over a couple times against the Bison. Danucci turned it over, and then the backup quarterback. I mean, Malak gets hurt, and then they're facing a backup QB in Montana State. That's the
big decided advantage.
The lineup there of guys. I want to go to your point on special teams, because we hammered that in the preseason of how NDSU may have a weak link there. Kroos has been great. He's had 1 field goal blocked all season long. Cardinal has been able to boot it. And Steindorf, especially against Incarnate Word, I thought Steindorf had a great game. That is a huge deal, because remember how James Madison nearly won the championship game in 2017 because their special teams was so much better than NDSU's.
Yeah, on the punt game.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
Punt game was much better. I'm looking at the punt returns. Jaden Jonke's pretty good. Yankee.
Yep.
14.5
he had it against
average.
The Bison too in October.
Long
he was really
58.
good.
I think Price is just a little bit better, and he's going to have to break something.
Yeah,
something's going to have to happen in that regard. I don't like the kickoff return team for NDSU has been non-existent.
No. And the one guy you want to put back there, you can't, in Kobe Johnson, because you can't risk his health at the RB1 spot right now. You just don't have that luxury of. That's something they'll need to address for 2023. I just
feel like they don't have that breakaway threat.
I mean, they had Raja Nelson there, but very rarely
I haven't seen him
do that.
To me, he doesn't have that feel on the kickoff return of finding the right crease. I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
No. It cost him in the Incarnate Word game where Braylon Henderson didn't field the ball, went out of bounds at the 2-yard line, led to the safety that UIW got. Let me circle back here. I want to do a couple other items here before we wrap. Just on atmosphere alone, I know we talked about this briefly in our last pod. The story that came out of Brookings on the tickets, I didn't laugh at. I did chuckle because it did remind me of 2011. I think Eric, you and myself did 8,000 ticket stories in that first year,
and Gene got a little irritated.
He did.
Gene Taylor.
Yeah, and I mean, it certainly seems like Justin Sell is doing the same thing now at SDSU, because it's kind of blown up in their face about Jackrabbit fans that want to get there that may not be able to have a ticket. Doesn't sound good.
Well, my advice to those fans is I have yet to know of a fan who's been down there and not gotten the game.
You're right. I think we have found out that people may freak out about it for 3 weeks out, 2 weeks out, week before, but the week of the game, But
it's a little dicey to, if you live in Sioux Falls and if you don't have a ticket, I'm going to go anyway. It just seems risky, doesn't it?
You think it's 50-50 split?
Probably. There was more Bison fans last year than I thought there would be. I thought at some point, the fact that they've been there so often, that there's going to be a noticeable drop. I didn't really see a noticeable drop in the game last year.
No, I thought it was more Bison fans than Montana State. I thought it was like 60-40 last year, maybe even 65-35 for NDSU.
But I've heard more the fact the game's on a Sunday is a detriment.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. For people that trying to get back.
Get back on Sunday, right?
Not wanting to miss
I've
work
heard that.
on Monday?
I've heard that.
Interesting.
Just heard that about an hour ago.
That's interesting.
Talking to a guy.
I had thought about that too. Like the television aspect of it is fine, but for people to go that, hey, I have to work on Monday, that's a real detriment there.
Yep.
There's no doubt. The other part to throw into this, and this is just the TV part of me, is the Vikings. The Vikings, if the Vikings play the Bears, the final game of the season, we don't know when, ABC could do the FCS a solid for people up here because it's not just North Dakota fans. There are lots of Viking fans that live in South Dakota. If the Vikings play on Saturday against the Bears.
Do you honestly think they would take that into account?
No.
I don't think so.
They're taking into account the best potential for playoffs. I mean, the Vikings are playing for the second seed in the NFC.
Right.
Maybe if they beat the Packers this weekend, hey, you know what? We put Minnesota, they're a high-profile team. Let's put them on ABC on. And now, granted, the game time, I think, is like 3 o'clock because you're playing in Chicago. I don't know if you want to play at 7 o'clock at night in the middle of January at Soldier Field, but something to keep an eye on for those of us that follow that stuff on the TV side. I got into a Twitter spat this week watching the bowl games. I know you have. I know you've watched quite a few of them, actually. We're doing this for the 10th time. A lot of fans are doing this for the 10th time. And I was just threw it out there. What do you think it would be for Bison fans to go to a city like Memphis, Orlando, where San Diego, one of the bowl tie-ins for the Mountain West or the American, how that week would be, Kolpack? I think they would enjoy themselves quite well.
The criticism of these bowls from Bison fans, like it's the put your business name there bowl, and the mocking of these bowls by Bison. I think you need to step back and maybe think about giving it a chance, because it sure looks like a lot of fun to me. It sure looked like the KU fans were having a good time at the Birmingham Bowl.
I mean, look at that. That Kansas-Arkansas game was in Memphis. They were having a heck of a time, and the game was great, and the players cared. Because I got the retort, well, with all the opt-outs happening, I'm like, okay, if Cody Mauch and Tucker Kraft were to opt out of this game, honestly, I wouldn't blame them. You're looking forward for your NFL future. It's different. You're playing for the championship, and you're not seeing guys in the CFP semis or the championship. None of those guys are opting out. You know what I mean?
Wyoming is playing in the Arizona Bowl in Tucson. I think my son and his buddies in Mesa are going to the game. Yep. He goes, Dad, tickets are $8. We're like, we're going to go down to Tucson, an hour and a half, and go watch some football.
Why not?
And it's Wyoming. You don't think they're having a good time down there? I mean, did Bison fans have a good time in Tucson? I think it sure seemed like it to me.
Sure seemed like they had an enjoyable time there.
I think the allure and the
meaningless part I get thrown at all the time. It's not meaningless, though. It's not. The bowl games are not.
Boy, it sure looked meaningful to Kansas.
Right. Looked meaningful last night to Florida State.
Arkansas, when they finally held on.
Look at that Florida State-Oklahoma game last night. That was meaningful to FSU.
And it's FBS, people. This is the highest level. It is FBS.
I'll throw this in. I visited with Gene Taylor about this. Kansas State playing Alabama. Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. 30,000 likely going to be in attendance at the Sugar Bowl at the Superdome for this game. I asked him about the last year going to the Texas Bowl. They beat LSU. So that was huge. That was a huge deal. We had a ton of people in Houston for that experience. It springboarded us to this season. So I mean, it works. It can work in a lot of ways, both financial. Your fans have a great time, and by the way, you can have success on the football field from it too. I think there's more positives to it.
And let me add this: NDSU's already accomplished the greatest dynasty in NCAA history.
What else is
they've already done it?
How many times do you think we're going to get this matchup now going forward? By the way, probably quite a bit, right? So you're going to your point what you just said off the top, right?
Yeah. On the FCS, the rest of the FCS,
right?
The CAA is not going to win a national title in the near future. Just nobody. Since JMU left, we've been waiting for Delaware, waiting.
Yeah.
New Hampshire's never done anything. Nobody in the CAA in the near future, in the next several years, that I see.
Richmond, William and Mary.
No. Yeah. William Mary went out to Bozeman and just got killed.
Yeah.
And then South Dakota State kills Montana State.
Right. And you're probably right. That's probably going to be a long
I think Montana.
way.
Yeah. Who besides these two teams?
Right. There's a huge gap. We saw that. It was on the football field this year.
Incarnate Word made
and they had an all-time team.
Incarnate Word with one of the great quarterbacks.
Yes.
The quarterback had an all-time record year in the FCS.
Yep.
That's what it took, and they still couldn't get by NDSU.
Still
needed beaten up NDSU team.
Yeah, exactly right. What do we make of our old buddy Chris Kleiman? You remember you and I were in Chicago, and we were giving him a hard time when he was hobnobbing with Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban. Now he's coaching against Nick Saban. By the way, Alabama's all in. Nobody's opted out. This is the full Crimson Tide roster that they're going to face.
That's surprising,
right?
Is it not?
I was surprised that they could have had a few guys. And
is Bryce Young?
He's playing.
Yeah, he's declaring.
Yes, he's gone, right. It's the Heisman Trophy winner from last year that they're going to go against. That's good stuff.
Surprising.
Yeah, that's a heck of a game. I'm really
kind of goes what you've been hearing and with kids not really being all in, transfer portal, not real bought into things like that. Good for Alabama. Good for those kids to stick it out.
Not the case in that game. Alabama and K-State, everybody's in that. Is there a chance that we have you're talking about all Valley championship game? Is there a chance we have an all Big Ten? Does Michigan and Ohio State have any chances to match up again for the title?
The way Ohio State looked to me against Michigan,
yeah.
I just don't see it. I just don't think they're as good as they were.
Georgia's really, really good.
Georgia's defense is just fantastic.
TCU Michigan should be fun, though.
Georgia's going to win this.
The whole thing?
Yep.
Again?
Yep.
All right. He's calling
clear
Georgia.
Path. Clear. Crystal.
Oh,
all clear. Crystal.
Crystal clear. Got it. What do you got us in store? You got to tease anything you got us in store for that you're working on down in Frisco before we go?
Well, our game day story is on Dawson Weber, and I think people will see another side of Dawson Weber.
That's a good tease. I like that. That's coming up on Saturday or Sunday. Saturday or Sunday?
A week from Saturday, I believe.
So are you doing? Is the game day section on Saturday? Because
on the print section,
okay,
right?
But everything online will be on Sunday.
Saturday.
Okay. Got to get everything straight here because the game is on Sunday. We'll be down there. Kolpack will join.
We will be cranking stuff on Thursday as soon as we get there around noon, and check online because we're going gangbusters right away. And that's what we do when we cover these national title games and this team in general.
Have been all year. The ratings reflective on television and certainly the amount of clicks online.
Yeah, what is it? 1.2 million?
Yeah, we're over 1 million, so that's pretty good.
Mike had in a story of our online stories.
Fargo to Frisco will be back. We'll be on 6:30 Friday night. Kolpack will join me for that. Bison game day, as I mentioned, is at noon, leading right to the football game on WDAY at 1 o'clock between South Dakota State and North Dakota State. That should be it's going to be a heck of a time down there. I'm really interested to see. And, by the way, the weather looks like it's going to be amazing.
Don't say it. Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it. You just jinxed it.
All right. Hey, believe me.
Every time we look at it,
it can't get any worse.
10 days in advance, it's like 65 and sunny. Then you get there, it's 44. It never fails. You just jinxed it.
The
Izzo jinx is real,
by the way. The last two championship games, what has it been? Like 30? The last two title games? It's been...
My feet were frozen from the pregame show.
See, that's your fault. You didn't prepare well enough. That's on you, right?
Bring toe warmers.
Good stuff. We'll be back with you guys next week, of course. Full coverage throughout the week and leading up to the game down in Frisco. Yeah, we're saying, hey, 2023, new beginnings. No more jinxes, man. We're hopeful for new stuff. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody out there. Thanks so much for listening all the time. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.